call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order at 6:06, and if you can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The one item on the agenda this evening is the Cultivating Committee, Brian Lees. So if you gentlemen want to come forward.
Good evening again.
Good evening. We want to thank you for coming out again for, I think now the fourth time. First I was on here.
Maybe running for office.
and-
Maybe running for office.
Get in now, right?
I can assure you we've been here many more times than before.
And we as a board appreciate you coming back and answering all of our questions as we possibly can, as you possibly can. We thank you for your document that you did get to us today. All the board has received it. And I would open it up to the board for a short Q&A maybe, and if they have any questions individually for you.
I don't really know which more can be asked. Get all the particulars. I think the main thing here is to find out what you're gonna give to the community. You know?
Well, as you know, as we had a discussion in the last meeting, I think you were going to talk to your lawyer, I think, town council. I spoke to other groups that are meeting with towns, and one group that's already in Amesbury. Remember, we had this discussion in the last go-around, and then kind of put something together along those same lines and sent it along to you with what other folks have used in other towns. And this is a document that is very close resembling the one cultivation facility that's currently ongoing in Massachusetts, that's up and also dispensing. No other cultivation center is dispensing yet. There's one other that's growing, but nobody else is dispensing. So it's along this line, and as you can see, there's obviously kickers in here. You don't start until you can start dispensing, because there's no money until the dispensing starts. That's number one. There's obviously a section in here that will allow it to be reviewed within 5 years. That's very standard. And there is a section in here that also has some additional monies going to local charities as well. So that's kind of where it stands. This document would provide the town of Webster $50,000 in cash that the selectmen can use at their discretion, and $5,000 would go to local charities that would be at the discretion of DMC, which is our organization, with input from the local community. And if you remember from our last document, we have a local advisory committee and others that help us perform. We tried to cover every angle. This is, as I said, as close a document to what is in one of the current communities, which is much larger, I might add, than Webster, but and has a larger, cultivation is larger than we're going to start out with, and the population is larger than Amesbury, but that's not the point of cultivation.
So I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page, though, because Mr. Lees is referring to the document that he submitted.
Amesbury.
Correct, and which is, we actually contacted the towns of Amesbury and Plymouth, Massachusetts, where there are cultivation sites, and did get, these documents are public documents, so we did in fact get copies of theirs. So the community benefit gift agreement that Mr. Lee submitted was based on the Amesbury agreement. Although I believe the document, if you didn't print that out and you're only looking at the document that Courtney just handed out, that document is, what I did was I took Mr. Lee's document And I looked at a couple of other host agreements and incorporated some additional things in here. So if I could,
Sure.
Mr. Lees hasn't seen this yet, but, so this is what I gave to the Board of Selectmen. And this, of course, would be, Mr. Lees and his group would have to review. And let the board know, even if they agree with a couple of there was only a few things that I included in here. And this is just for the board. I did receive some comments from Selectman Becker, but any feedback by the board.
Do you want to take a moment to look it over?
Sure. I mean, obviously, any agreement after tonight would have to go to our board anyway,
Sure.
so.
Pam, is there any bullet points?
But if
that
there's
you want?
any numbers that are different or new, it may be helpful, then I could just check that.
I kept the dollar amounts the same, although I did change when the amounts are due and payable. Let's see, number one, $50,000 annually, 2 installments of $25,000 each, at 6-month intervals, commencing 30 days from the date a final registration to operate an RMD, and all municipal approvals are awarded to DMCTC by the Mass Department of Public Health in the town. So that's a change. I included the upon the 5th anniversary, to calculate the appropriate inflation adjustment that was in yours. I kept the $5,000 for the charities at DMCTC's discretion.
But you did indicate in the charities that they're charities that are located in the town, I think it says here.
Yes. Public charities in the town.
Anytime it says town, it refers to this town. So,
Correct.
and if we said in the beginning of our document, Webster, and then we referred to it as town, so we carried that through.
Right. Were there any other bullet points?
There are others.
Okay, go ahead.
And again, I didn't make this stuff up, I took it from other agreements. So of course, I'm going to include everything that behooves the town and protects the town and our interests. The real property taxes, I believe your agreement stated that, I apologize.
Ours was number 5, yours is number 5 too, so.
Okay, and it does say that to the extent that it maintains its classification as a nonprofit organization, DMCTC, and/or manufacturing facility, shall be exempt from the payment of taxes on personal property to the same extent as similar organizations and facilities operating within the town. So I've replaced your number 5 with DMCTC commits that all real property taxes owing for the property will be paid when due, and in no event shall DMCTC apply for a reduction or elimination of property taxes due to DMCTC's not-for-profit status, so that you would be subject to all real and personal property taxes. Let's see. There is I learned something today. It is Mr. Becker,
Favored nations clause.
favored nations clause. I had never heard that before, but that's
Most favored nations clause.
that's number 8. It says that in the event that DMCTC enters into a community benefit gift agreement with another municipality in the Commonwealth for their siting of a cultivation and processing facility in that community, or compensates another municipality in any way for citing a cultivation and processing facility in that municipality, and the annual dollar amount of that compensation to another municipality exceeds DMCTC's payments under this agreement, DMCTC shall pay to the town the shortfall between the value of DMCTC's payments under this agreement and the exceeding value under the agreement with the other potential municipality described in this paragraph.
Does that, however, you refer to both cultivation and processing, does that mean if it's similar, so it's a cultivation, not or in processing, but not a dispensary?
Correct.
Okay.
And that is why I included that language, because I understand that
Yes, yeah,
there is a difference.
okay, that's what I thought.
And again, this is my take on this. These gentlemen might have something totally different, but this is my take on this. Let's see. just number 15, and I think that's, kind of added to your number 14. You list a few reasons why this, agreement would become null and void. If we impose a local license fee, registration fee, moratorium specifically applicable to RMDs operating in the town, other than your normal building and health code licenses and permits. In the event that DMC shall not locate an RMD facility in the town, or shall relocate the RMD facility out of town, and you include in here the fact that we would be eligible for any amounts owed to us. I've added to that, I've included the local license fee, registration, let's see, fails to locate an RMD facility in the town or shall relocate such RMD facility out of town. You cease to operate a cultivation and processing facility in the town, cease to operate an RMD in the Commonwealth, or if the town notifies DMCTC of the town's termination of this agreement for cause, defined as DMCTC's purposeful or negligent violation of any laws of the Commonwealth with respect to the operation of an RMD, and such violation remains uncured for 30 days, and/or if DMCTC fails to make payments to the town as required under this agreement, and such failure remains uncured for a term of 30 days. And that really are the main points of what I added to it.
Was 16 in the Amesbury agreement?
It was.
Okay.
Yep. So, and I apologize, it's the first time you're seeing this. This is hot off the press. I just finished it.
Obviously, the board would have to approve this. The main change, it all seems fine to me. Several things were added that come from Plymouth, I
Yes,
believe. They're not
absolutely.
yet dispensing, they're just cultivating. Obviously, the amount of money paid, our board would have to review that because you're not making any money in that period of time. It takes time to make money, to pay money. Our investors may not agree with giving out money to somebody until we actually start to get money. Most of, all of these agreements that I've seen have that, but maybe Plymouth does not, so that's okay. All of them, all these things certainly within reason, and we'll certainly look at it.
We've
But
got to
paying
the,
somebody before you make any money, I think would be tough.
well, I mean, the truth of the matter is that you've got to spend money to make money. And where, the board has gotten to this point, because I think that we're all looking at this as something that's positive, not something that's negative, and that's why we're sitting here again tonight. So I would open it up to the board, to see if there are any more questions, for Mr. Lees.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just have one for our Assistant Town Administrator. I'm not sure if you received my email response after Selectman Becker had responded.
I had a library building
That's
committee
fine.
meeting at 5 o'clock. I apologize, I didn't.
That's fine. So let me ask my question here then. My question is just in regard to this agreement. If there is a violation of the agreement, what action does the town have in that respect? Because my understanding is where it's regulated at the state level, not that I don't trust you guys, I just don't trust anybody. So, if there were...
We don't trust anybody.
Yeah, so
as well.
I'm sure you can kind of see, from a town perspective that, say for example, you guys hit a bump in the road and, payments aren't able, the agreement becomes void. It's like, my question is, what's the unknown thereafter? I don't know if you had anything to offer, Pam. Or if
I
it's a
don't,
question
that's
for town
just,
council,
that
probably.
was not in the original agreement, but that was in the Plymouth agreement, there are two Plymouth agreements. There's one that is proposed right now for a cultivation and dispensary with one group. This language comes from an agreement with a group that is already cultivating, no dispensary, but is already cultivating in Plymouth. And it's this language. So we have the right to notify DMCTC that we're going to terminate this agreement for cause, and that cause being if they don't make their payments on time and it remains uncured for 30 days, or if they violate any laws of the Commonwealth with regard to operating an RMD. We also have that right, and it remains uncured for 30 days. So as far as what then,
My thought is that, you know, the town would only be at the position then where we would probably submit a complaint to the Department of Public Health, I would think, against their organization if we did have an issue, would be my thought, if the agreement were violated.
I think the state would jump in.
Yeah, I mean, and not that you guys would do that, I mean, I don't have any suspicions like that, but you always have to think of the worst case what-if scenario, you know, in the best interest of the town. Otherwise, the agreement to me seems to make sense. I mean, my only other question was probably readdressing the payment schedule after the 5th year anniversary. I was wondering maybe if that were open to negotiation after the 3rd or 4th years, which would probably be, I would think, when you would start to make some real money. The first 2 years are probably a wash, really. But year 3 and 4 is probably when we get to see what the projections would look like. So I'm not sure if any other board members have a comment on that.
And I think I agree. I mean, ramping it up certainly takes time, and having the opportunity to talk a little bit at the last meeting about the amount of money that this will earn, it would seem as though the town should ask for a little bit more, but you can't really do that, as Selectman Starzak said, until you're making more money. So, you know, I would think in year 3, probably year 3, that the town should get more. And looking at I think it was Plymouth, had $100,000 in there, ramped up. And the other concern I had was the amount, if this is, and this is a charity, this is a nonprofit, would be to look to give a little bit more to town charities, maybe in a percentage of the gross, maybe a 1% of the gross, or instead of $5,000, it just doesn't seem as though that would do very much for any local charities. I know I personally have come a long way, and I was dead set against this, I'll tell you right now. I've talked to a lot of people who don't think it's a good idea for the town. I've kind of come full circle in the sense that understanding the medicinal purposes of this, there is certainly some concern that people can get medical marijuana cards too easily. Hopefully that gets addressed. But I think I've come full circle in that. Even there are programs now where marijuana is being used for opiate addiction. So that's something that, you know, I think helped turn my mind around. So not to say that just turning my mind around says, hey, we should get a great benefit for the town, but I think in looking at the Plymouth agreement and just seeing that today, that opened my eyes up a little bit after talking as well at the last meeting, to the amount of money that this particular nonprofit will get.
Just to answer, so everybody realizes a couple things here. Obviously, this initially was a program that, and it still is, done by county. However, there are only going to be 35 initially. It is now opened up to many more. The Hampden County is certainly smaller than Plymouth County, and so there is some issues when, obviously, Middlesex County payments are going to be much larger because the cultivation facility is probably going to be much larger. So you have to keep that in mind. And when you look at different host agreements, you have to also look at what the amount they're going to grow. Not just that it's a host agreement in one place. What are they going to grow, and how much product are they going to be able to dispense in an initial county? I mean, Suffolk County obviously is only Boston, Somerville, and Cambridge, I believe. There may be one other town in the county of Suffolk, but that's a huge county compared to other counties. So their host agreements will be quite different. So everybody, you know, I would want to see what the different ones were. Obviously, we understand we are a nonprofit. We are going to be doing the cultivation here, not the dispensing, which is so that none of the people that get cards or anything else can come into Webster or into this county to get them. So we have to keep that in mind. And most nonprofits in the beginning, anyway, and you mentioned 3 years, it's a 4 to 5 year span to be able to put in new grow rooms and grow out, because you only have 3 grow cycles a year approximately. So a lot of money is reinvested initially, but obviously anything is discuss with them, but that is an issue, you know, we're already spending a fairly good amount of money that is not available to be borrowed from a bank, as you all know, to be able to get going. Yes, you have to spend money to make money. At the same time, you have to be able to raise the money to spend the money.
I think a percentage of the profits would be ideal, like Mr. Beck said, 1%, if you make this much, it's 1% of that much. If you make this much, it's 1% of that much.
Yeah,
So,
actually,
you know, it's.
I was
like a
saying
tax
1% of
rate.
the gross.
Right.
Yeah.
But look,
And
Excuse
so
me.
that's certainly something to discuss.
as you well know, and I'm just assuming this, $50,000 is probably not one salary of one of the people that are gonna be working at your facility. So $50,000 to the town of Webster is not an exorbitant amount of money. $25,000 within the first 30 days is not an exorbitant amount of money. And you can't honestly, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but you can't honestly tell me that it is when you know and we all know what the end result can be for this. The town of Webster is possibly willing to take this venture with you, and we want this to be successful, but we don't want to fall on our face either. We're trying to do what's best for the town, and we want this to work and keep this positive and not look at it as a negative, but there has to be some give and take and some understanding on both sides, and I think that's where the board is coming from.
So
you know,
again,
tonight.
Yeah, we don't
Right.
disagree. We worked off of the Amesbury Agreement, which currently has a dispensing facility that's much larger than what we're looking at. The mayor and the city council in Amesbury supported $50,000. I got some information from others, some which were less. I didn't see $100,000 in Plymouth, and I certainly will look at that. All we're working on is what we can work from, that was all. I'm not, as I
Right.
told you, everything is certainly negotiable, and we appreciate that. And that's why we have continued to come back, continue to give you anything you've asked for. We've tried to be as positive as we can with it. And this agreement was one that is out there that some folks like yourself have voted for, so we felt that this was something, and again, it's a much larger facility, and it's in Essex County, which is bigger as well, but we felt we want to be as fair to you and positive. But everything is certainly worth discussing.
So, if we look at the big picture here, we're possibly looking at 3 years rather than 5 for reevaluation, is that correct?
I mean, I would suggest the board might want to consider in clause 3, at the 3rd anniversary, now it says 5th anniversary, dealing with escalation clauses for CPI. In the 3rd anniversary, moving the amount to 75,000, and then the 4th anniversary to 100,000, and then leave it at that.
Well,
I wasn't asked for 100,000 right up front.
all right, well, this is turning into Shark Tank pretty quickly from what I can see.
Yeah.
But,
With due respect, we have investors that we have met with it. They have invested money and they have not received anything so far.
and that's my point. That's why I don't think we
We
can
gotta be
set to a
careful.
dollar figure that high yet, as ambitious as we are to help the town. My thoughts of it, you know, if I were an investor in this organization and I saw that we were looking to pay that out before you're not gonna make a dollar probably for at least the first year and a half, I'd tell the town to take a walk. So with that said, I'm wondering maybe if we sweeten the deal where in clause 1, where it says, you know, the sum of $50,000, let's do a base and then a percentage. That way we can split the difference. So we could say, let's call it $25,000 base, so we know that we're guaranteed something, no matter how much they sell. And then we can negotiate maybe 2% over gross. So then after years 3 and 4, that actually becomes a very viable number if their calculations are anywhere in the realm of possibility from what I've seen. So.
And leave it at a 5-year, so do 25,000.
Well, we could still keep the 3-year or they decide to renegotiate it if, you know, we felt that we were being shortchanged or they felt we were being over ambitious. You know, my thought is, I mean, this is real rough from what I remember them telling me, but let's say they were to gross $1.5 million in the first or second year, and if you had, well, my math is screwed up here. If you were looking at 2% of that, that's $30,000 on top of the 25 that we'd have as the base. I think that's pretty reasonable. And we could also break up that payment schedule the same as this, so that they're under the gun to do a one-time payment. They could break it up throughout the year.
The Selectman Starzak, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So you're looking at recommending that we cut the annual sum down from 50,000 to 25,000 plus a basis?
Right, I think we need to do.
2%.
Correct.
Gross.
I think that's pretty fair, and I think that that's something the investors could work with, because that's based off a sliding scale of how much you guys can sell, and then go from there. I think it's a good negotiation point, and please feel free to tell me if I'm wrong or if you have a better idea.
No, I think we, we heard the amount of, and this was an executive session, so I prefer not to say what the amount that's gonna be grown or the amount that was gonna be raised in dollars. I think, your way will get kind of to the same place, but it doesn't really deal with the charities part of it, so.
Could we add that in too? If you could think of it, because my thought is I just want to ease it to the investors for the first year or
Like
two.
Number 4, you recommended 1%.
Well, again, take 2% off the top here,
Right.
1% off the top there, that
And
suddenly,
then you take
there are no
right,
investors
and then
willing to
3%
invest.
across the board. So, on the first one, we're looking at 25K and then 2% gross, right? Let me just write that.
Can I just,
Yep.
I'm sorry, chime in here? This agreement references Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, which is a statute which talks about grants and gifts, which can be spent without further appropriation. However, the Department of Revenue has just issued with, we get a end-of-year memo from the Department of Revenue, and their opinion is that any amounts received from these types of agreements are general fund revenue. I enjoy debating with the DOR on occasion, however, I need to do what they're telling me to do, even though this particular agreement does reference that section of law that would be challenged by the Department of Revenue. So when you're talking about percentages and things like that for budgeting purposes, if this money is gonna be used for budgeting purposes, it's a little more difficult for us to know what we're gonna have and be able to rely on for budgeting purposes. That's just one concern I would have, because when it comes to the budgeting, I'd rather know what we're getting so we can count on it and figure it right into the budget without having to estimate. When does your fiscal year run?
Is it calendar year?
Is it calendar or it does, yes.
So you would rather leave the 50?
I would rather, whatever the amount may be, I would rather it be
Some
in that
sort of-
particular section of some sort, and so that I know what I have when I go to do the budget.
So what if we, this is just a thought, what if we did 75 for the first 5 years, with 25 within the first 30, and then we did 7,500 for charities?
Yeah,
I mean-
it may be easier just to put everything in clause 1. I'd mentioned to suggest 75,000 in the 3rd year anniversary and 100,000 after that, and then clause 3 kicks in with a consumer price index after that. The charities, if it's 7,500, that's what the committee would like, that's fine. I thought, we could do more for the charities, because I'm assuming that the nonprofit here is going to be giving out charitable gifts, and that it's,
Right,
Yes.
right.
and I'm still honestly a little confused about investors making money in a nonprofit, perhaps.
Similar to a bank, I mean, you're paying investors a percentage for the money they loan us in order to get going. They can't be equity partners, because in a nonprofit, you can't own it.
So the investors then are debt, they're lending money
Correct.
to the entity, and they're getting an interest rate,
Correct.
and that's their investment.
Correct.
But in the spirit of what we're talking about, would you be willing to bring back to your board the 75,000?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
I think what would be helpful for us, since this seems to be a floating number, you prepare something similar to what
We're
we have here.
gonna we're gonna wrap
We're
this
gonna
up,
vote it
we're gonna
tonight.
wrap this up tonight.
And then
This is
send
gone.
it to us, we will, in a written form, that, so we
Yeah.
can bring it to our board.
Okay.
Our council is gonna have to look at it, run this through the other communities, and we'll go from there. Absolutely, we're happy to.
Sure, okay.
I
Okay,
had a
so-
meeting today with the board, they gave me authorization to negotiate, but I need to bring the document back to them. like
Sure.
you.
And we will, and we're gonna get this wrapped, because this is,
So is that what the board's looking at, 75,000?
well, that's what I'm recommending. I don't know what the entire board is
Yeah, I'll go
interested in,
along with that.
as well as your recommendation for the,
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation was, 75,000 after year 3, I'm sorry, the beginning of year 3, so they'll have 2 full years
Mhm.
of
to wrap
oper-
up.
2 full years of operating, I'm not sure if that's at capacity, obviously. And then $100,000 at the 4th anniversary, and then CPI kicks in at that point. And then Mr. Degovich mentioned, 7,500, that's for charitable purposes, for charities that are within the town. I guess I can make that in the form of a motion.
Anyone want to second that?
All right, so just read the motion back.
So, it's proposed that from year one and two, you propose $50,000. Year 3 would be $75,000. Year 4, $100,000.
And then after
With
that, on the
7,500
CPI.
going to charity.
Then after that, clause 3 is already
Kicks in.
there
Right,
for
yeah.
CPI.
Yeah, I'll second that.
And then 7,500 for under clause 4?
Yes.
I don't know if their board will agree to it, but I'll second it.
All right, a motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm getting the sense from them, they feel that the 30 days is going to be an issue. This language I did change. Do you have any problem with me changing it back to what they originally suggested? And that being 25,000 at 6-month intervals commencing 6 months from the date that DMCTC commences sales at its dispensing location, anticipated to be in Hampden County, Mass. DMCTC shall notify the town when DMCTC commences sales.
Well, my question for that would be is that how long do you anticipate, I know, this is a tough question, because it's really wide open. How long do you anticipate that being? Is it going to be another year? Is it going to be another 3 months? Is it going to be another 18 months? Look, we're this close, so,
It really doesn't have anything to do with us, it has to do with the state. When you are allowed to start to cultivate, then there's all kinds of process you go through, and reviews and regulations you go through, the Department of Public Health, then they will approve you to start to dispense. And as you remember from Mr. Lusardi last week, he's the only one in the state that's dispensing at this point. He's not allowed to at this point, he hasn't been approved to sell any, prescribe anything else but a straight marijuana product, no lozenges, no sobs, no other products that the oils from marijuana would be used for. And that's another issue that has come up. Another cultivating facility we talked about last week, if you may remember, is in Franklin, and they're going to dispense in Greenfield. They've grown, their product is waiting, and they have not been approved to dispense. So it doesn't have once you start to grow in your grow rooms, you get about 3 grow cycles a year for the marijuana product. If it was allowed, after you start to grow, hopefully within 6 months of starting to grow, you're dispensing. But again, it doesn't have anything to do with our company, it doesn't have anything to do with the board, it has to do with the Department of Public Health ruling that you are now ready to go to the next step.
so realistically, what we're looking at is that you could still be looking at another 6 months process. And then another 6 months before you're ready to, potentially, I'm just.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
You're
I hope not.
potentially looking, well,
But
right,
potentially,
9 to 12 months we could be looking at.
correct.
Is that being fair?
We don't know, we're going through this process. Some people already have the license and
Right.
still going through the process, but
Well, let me just ask this, from the time that the other gentleman that was here, when he initially started, when he was in front of a board and initially started, what was the length of time? Just to give us an idea.
I think is what, I believe, I'm not absolutely sure,
No.
9 months, I think.
Okay, so it's 9 to 12 months that we're looking at. So.
And he was on his second growth cycle. It's still
Correct,
waiting.
okay.
But when you're the first, a lot of things are different than by the time we're getting there, hopefully there'll be 2 or 3 others.
So is it fair to say that the 30 days, obviously, would be very tough, obviously, if we're looking at 9 to 12 months. Is it fair to say if we did 90 days, that at least it's agreeing in the middle, we're coming to a middle point, and we're still in obviously our same fiscal year? Correct?
This won't take place until next fiscal year.
Next fiscal year, okay. So we would be in our next fiscal year. So if we were to say 90 days, is that something that you could bring to your board? I'm not saying our board would agree to that, but I'm saying,
Well, let me put something to perspective. Once we go forward, we are leasing a place, we have to be paying the rent on that space, for the growing and for the distribution, retrofitting the place, and that's money that we have to spend to get them. Like you say, you have to spend money to make money. We will be spending money to get that money. So that's money that is going out, and that's why we would like to, all of us like to be able to put everything quick
right,
with the state so they can approve us. But then once we get the place, they have to come and do the inspection
right.
and everything else. So security, everything else. So again,
But with all due respect, you're coming into our community, though.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. When do you receive funds with regards to selling the marijuana that's cultivated? Does the dispensary buy it, or is it,
No.
is it just, okay, so it's all one
Same.
entity?
Mm.
It's
So-
all at this moment in cash. It doesn't, nothing is credit.
So the question, or the thought I would have is, maybe you still do commencing 30 days, but after the first dispensing takes place. That way you're locking in
Which
to
would
the
be-
time when the revenue starts coming in, which we don't know what the date would be.
Right.
But at least it's more certain than saying 90 days after, or 180 days, or 9 months after this. Money
Right.
starts coming into your nonprofit.
As soon as you start, the dispensary is open.
Correct.
You start.
Correct. So, but rather than what Selectman Becker's saying, rather than 6 months after that period, that time, when you start commence sales at your dispensing location,
It would be 30 days.
30 days.
Correct. And forget about the registration.
Forget about that.
You
Yeah.
can, again, as I told you, anything, we're certainly
Okay.
willing to bring anything back. We'll have to go
Okay.
to the board and they'll have to look at it. They
So-
may come back with something
You want
else.
Yeah, I'll make that in the form of a
you
motion.
want to just modify your first,
Well, I think we've already talked about the
well, we were
dollar
in
amounts.
discussion, so you can modify that.
Okay,
That
so
one
yes,
is added,
sorry,
okay.
yes.
So he's gonna add that to his, or modify it, and we'll add seconded. Do you
Which
still want
I
a
will
second?
re-second it. Yeah, so we're looking to do 30 days from the date of dispensing.
30 days from the date that DMCTC commences sales at its dispensing location, anticipated to be in Hampden County, Mass. DMCTC shall notify the town when DMCTC commences sales.
No, I think that's a fair amendment, because otherwise their board would read that and say that there's no way it's gonna happen, so that makes sense.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Courtney, poll the board.
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Selectman Starzak?
Yes.
Selectman Jolda?
Yes.
Selectman Duggovich?
Yes.
Chairman Bork?
Yes. Welcome.
Welcome to Webster.
Okay,
Let's be
So now we
great
need
neighbors.
a
Well, we need to
motion
specify which agreement.
Right.
Well, I assume this is done contingent upon
Their board approval.
your board
Right.
approval.
So it's either a letter of support or a letter of non-opposition.
I would entertain a motion for,
we prefer letter of support, so,
Right.
in a good spirit relationship.
I entertain a motion.
Nobody wants to put their name on this? I'll put in a motion of letter of support for DMTC.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Well-
Again, just
Yeah.
from the standpoint of timing, are we looking to pass this letter along to the MTC at the same time simultaneous with your board? I just wanna make sure that this is done almost in escrow.
I understand that, yeah.
So-
We've gotta pass our thing to get back to you, and if there's any changes to that, you're gonna have to then take another vote.
That's
correct.
I certainly understand that.
Just wanna make sure everyone is aware
Yeah,
of that.
no,
Any other discussion?
So Courtney and I will draft the letter, we have the template, and then we'll need the board to come in and sign the letter based upon your vote this evening. And then I'll send that along with the changes that they've made to this draft agreement, and then you can bring that to your
and the
board.
letter is contingent on us passing that the way that you passed it.
Correct.
Okay?
I understand that. Perfect.
And the other question is, does nothing restrict us from giving non-charitable corporation more money? I wanna make sure that
Oh, sure.
if at some point the board feel that they want to spend more money, that do not restrict us to give more the money for education or some other stuff.
Believe it or not, that can be an issue with some people.
Courtney, poll the board?
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Selectman Starzak?
Yes.
Selectman Jolda?
Yes.
Selectman Duggan?
Yes.
Chairman Bork?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
And the final, Mr. Chairman, the final thing is, we prefer that money to come to the town. So if we can put legal counsel to find out what's the best way that we can get the money to the town, and you don't have to deal with the regulation with the state.
The town for,
For
the money that's going to come to us is the,
Town of
$75,000.
The town of Webster, because you mentioned that the Department of Revenue have different
Mhm.
regulations.
Right,
So we can work with the town council and a council to make sure that the town get the most money. That's our perspective.
That doesn't go through the
Because
state.
if you go to
or
the,
that.
if you go to you and then you go back to the state, that's a wash for you guys.
Right.
So we will work with you in the best way to make sure that the money comes to the town.
thank you, yeah, that's fine.
Any other business unknown at time of posting? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Any other discussion? Courtney, poll the board?
Selectman Becker?
Yes.
Selectman Starzak?
Yes.
Selectman Jolda?
Yes.
Selectman Duggan?
Yes.
Chairman Bork?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.